In the late 19th century, Paris was a city of elegance, expansion, and hidden darkness. Behind the grand boulevards and growing wealth of the French capital, there were stories unfolding that would later become chilling reminders of how easily trust could be misplaced. One of those stories begins with a man whose life, at first glance, seemed ordinary, disciplined, respected, and even admired by those around him. But beneath that surface, something far more disturbing was quietly taking shape. Victor Joseph Prévost was born on December 11, 1836, in a small town located about 40 miles southeast of Paris. He grew up in a modest household, the son of a coachman who worked transporting passengers between towns, while his mother cared for Victor and his two older brothers. His early childhood appeared stable, even peaceful. He attended school during a period when France was expanding access to basic education, and like many children of his time, he experienced a structured but simple upbringing. Those who knew him as a child described him as active, strong, and generally well-adjusted, though his life would soon take a very different direction. At around 14 years old, Victor left his hometown and moved to Paris in search of work. He found employment at a company that manufactured fences and decorative trellises, a physically demanding job that required long hours and little comfort. The conditions were harsh, and unlike some of his co-workers, he was not provided with proper sleeping arrangements, often forced to rest on a simple mattress on the floor.
During this period, Victor also struggled with a compulsive eating disorder, which was not understood at the time and often led others to misjudge his behavior. In an environment where discipline was strict and empathy was limited, Victor was seen by some as difficult or untrustworthy, especially after an incident where he was caught stealing food and was severely punished. Life in that workshop marked a turning point. Whether driven by humiliation, resentment, or simply circumstance, Victor eventually left that job after witnessing a moment that revealed another side of himself. He intervened when a young man was injured in a street accident involving delivery carts, helping to carry goods to their destination. This act unexpectedly led to an opportunity. He was offered an apprenticeship at a butcher shop. It was here that Victor began learning a trade that would shape the rest of his life in deeply troubling ways. He worked hard, delivering meat across Paris, serving restaurants, bakeries, hotels, and private homes. He became skilled in his profession and was even allowed to eat freely at the end of the day. To those around him, he appeared dependable, strong, and increasingly confident. However, his personal life remained unstable. He was eventually dismissed after inappropriate attention within the household connected to his workplace caused conflict. Still, he continued moving forward, finding work elsewhere and maintaining his reputation as a capable worker.
In 1855, Victor was conscripted into the French army, as was expected of many young men of his generation. Military service provided him with structure and discipline, and he served for several years, even returning to duty later and spending nearly a decade in total military life. His record during this time was considered respectable, and he eventually earned a position in a prestigious cavalry unit responsible for escorting high-ranking officials, including Emperor Napoleon III. During his military years, Victor appeared to integrate into society in a more stable way. He was seen in public events, guarded important figures, and was even considered a reliable presence among his peers. Yet beneath this outward discipline, there were growing concerns that would only become clear later. Around this time, there were rumors and unexplained disappearances connected to individuals who had interacted with him, but nothing concrete was ever proven. His reputation and position protected him from deeper scrutiny. After leaving the military, Victor transitioned into a role as a police officer in Paris. Ironically, this placed him in a position of authority within the very city where his later actions would unfold. As a police officer, Victor patrolled the streets, maintained order, and became a familiar figure to the public. Many residents recognized him as a tall, strong officer who appeared friendly and approachable, especially with children and local shopkeepers. Women, in particular, often noticed him, and he gained a reputation as a striking and well-liked presence in his neighborhood. Despite this, his behavior was not always consistent with the image of a disciplined officer, and his personal life remained complex and unstable. Over time, a series of unsettling events began to emerge. In 1876, a woman named Adele Blondin, who had inherited a modest fortune and lived carefully with her wealth, was last seen heading to meet Victor. She never returned. At the time, her disappearance did not immediately raise alarm, as missing persons cases in Paris were not uncommon and were often left unresolved. However, years later, suspicions would resurface when evidence connected her final known movements to Victor's residence. Still, at the time, no serious investigation was conducted.
As Paris continued to grow into a densely populated metropolis, crime and disappearances became increasingly difficult to track. By the late 1870s, the city was home to nearly 2 million people. Amidst this expansion, another incident would finally bring attention to a disturbing pattern. In 1879, a passerby noticed a man behaving suspiciously near a quiet area by a stream. The man was seen leaving behind what appeared to be a package of meat. When authorities were alerted and the contents were examined, it was discovered that the remains were human. This shocking finding triggered a wider investigation, leading police to search the surrounding areas. Over the following days, multiple packages containing human remains were recovered, though identification of the victim was initially impossible. Witness descriptions eventually pointed toward a man who resembled a well-known local police officer, Victor. When questioned, he initially appeared nervous and gave inconsistent answers about his whereabouts. Neighbors also reported seeing him carrying unusual items wrapped in cloth. Under increasing pressure, Victor eventually admitted that he had been present at the location and became directly involved in the investigation.
A search of his apartment revealed further evidence, including personal belongings linked to victims and additional remains. One of the identified victims was a local jeweler who had gone missing after visiting Victor's residence regarding a supposed business transaction. As the investigation deepened, Victor eventually confessed to multiple crimes. He described inviting individuals into his home under various pretenses before attacking them and disposing of their remains across different parts of Paris. He also admitted to the earlier disappearance of Adele Blondin and led authorities to the location where her remains were buried. Other cold cases were reviewed, and while he denied involvement in some of them, suspicion remained strong given the pattern of behavior uncovered during the investigation. The trial began in December of 1879 in Paris. Throughout the proceedings, Victor remained calm and largely emotionless. Evidence presented in court, including witness testimony and physical findings, left little doubt about the outcome. After a brief deliberation, the jury found him guilty, and he was sentenced to death. His appeals were ultimately rejected. On January 19, 1880, Victor Joseph Prévost was executed by guillotine in front of a gathered crowd in Paris. The case left a lasting impact on the city, not only because of the brutality of the crimes, but also because of the unsettling reality that a trusted figure of authority had been responsible. It remains one of the darker reminders of how appearances can conceal the most disturbing truths, and how even within a rapidly modernizing society, darkness can exist in plain sight.